Okay, so it looks like that's all set up. So good morning, welcome to another day of movement meditations. So yeah, today we're going to continue what we've been doing yesterday and the day before, looking at the subject of how we deal with pain. And obviously, as I think about the subject, more stuff comes up, and I'm interested in going in this direction and that direction. But one of the things that I think is really important is that kind of overall systemic muscle tone that we have in our system. And one of the big I don't know the way to describe it, but one of the ways that we really hold tension is actually in our ribs, in our chest. And this is a historic emotional thing that we do throughout our lives, and we learn to stabilize our chest and the muscles around our ribs in such a way that actually doesn't allow us or our system to utilize the breath in its full capacity, or even just to relax. So we hold tension, we store tension in the chest, and then we never kind of get to this experience of feeling comfortable and relaxed. So this lesson is kind of pointed in that direction. It is possible to do this lesson lying on your back. If you would like to do that, if you tell me in the chat, I can give some instructions specifically to that. I am going to teach the lesson in sitting. So that's completely up to you. If you feel like you want to lie down and do this, that's okay. If some of you participated in yesterday's lesson, that's a benefit. If you didn't, then I'll just talk a little bit through what we did yesterday as well. So with all of that said, if you take a moment just to find a comfortable position for you to sit or lie in. So if you're lying, you'll be on your back, and if you want, you can have your knees bent. So as you sit there, just bring your attention to your overall sense of comfort. As you sit, you haven't done anything, been given no instruction yet, and what's your sense of yourself? Which parts of your body, or what feedback do you get? Like as you stop and you just bring your attention to yourself, do you get some feedback? Does this part of your body send this information to you? Another part send a different type of information to you? Good. And if you could make yourself more comfortable in sitting, how would you do that? Okay, so then just move your attention, change where your attention is to the movement of your breath. And notice the sensations of movement. Where do you feel movement as you breathe in and as you breathe out? Try and keep it as non-judgmental as possible. Really just watching as you breathe, you make a movement. And where does that movement occur? Good. Okay, so then leave that for a moment. And then what I'd like you to do is a few times, just take your head so that you're going to look very gently and slowly down to the seat beneath you, or if you're lying down, you're just going to lift the head a little away from the floor. So very slowly, very gently, just moving the head forwards and then bringing it back. If you're in sitting, you can use the eyes to organize the movement. So you're just kind of looking down and then bringing the head back up. It's a really simple. We're not doing anything complicated this week. Just moving the head forwards. And do you keep breathing as you do this? Do you hold your breath? My mic was probably very quiet. That's better. So as you move your head, can you notice whether you breathe in or you breathe out as you move your head? So as you move your head down towards the seat beneath you, and as you bring it up, in which moment do you breathe in and in which moment do you breathe out? If you haven't held your breath. Try the same movement, but holding the breath. See if it changes anything if you hold your breath and you try and move your head in that way. Again, just taking the head very gently forwards, looking towards the seat beneath you and bringing it back. Good. So that's a general sense of how that feels. Go back a few times to breathing in whichever way feels comfortable to you, taking the head down and breathing at the same time. And notice as you take your head downwards, doing this movement, what's happening with your ribs? Could you say that the ribs at the front ribs are closing very gently as you take your head downwards? This does involve a movement of the back, the spine, the torso. It's not just kind of an isolated movement of the head and the neck. But even if you did try and do an isolated movement of the head and the neck, it would involve the areas lower down. So see kind of as you do that movement, you take your head forwards, what's happening in the ribs at the front of the body and what's happening in the ribs at the back of the body. Good. Take a little rest. Take a rest, short rest. And then just bring your attention to your breathing again. So as you breathe in and breathe out, can you sense some change in the space between the ribs at the front of the body without doing the head movement? So as you breathe in, can you feel some sense of space? And as you breathe out, can you feel a different sense of space in between the ribs? A few times consciously, see if you can breathe in such a way that allows you to open up the front of the chest. So the ribs at the front of the chest kind of expand and open. Do that consciously, just a few times. In the image for this lesson, I use a picture of an emperor penguin because they've got this like wonderful expanded round chest at the front. Good. And then a few times, move your attention to the ribs at the back of the body. And notice as you breathe out, is there a change in size or space between the ribs at the back of the body. So if the front ribs are opening as you breathe in, I assume that means that the back ribs are closing as you breathe in, but is it different? Is it opposite as you breathe out? And now see if you can notice both of them one after the other. So as you breathe in, notice what's happening in the front ribs. And as you breathe out, what's happening with the ribs at the back. Maybe you can notice that as one opens, the other closes, and as one closes, the other opens. And it's not exactly like that, but for the purposes of this lesson, it's like that. Good. And then can you begin to take the head downwards towards the chair again? Take the head downwards towards the chair and then bring it back up to its neutral position. And notice as you take your head down, what happens to the ribs, excuse me, what happens to the ribs at the back of the body as you take your head downwards. And as you bring your head back upright, what happens to the ribs at the front of the body? And see then, if you sense there's some difference between the front and the back ribs as you do this movement, could you integrate some form of breathing into this movement? So that as you take your head downwards and look down towards the chair, if the back ribs are opening and the front ribs are closing slightly, maybe that's a good moment to breathe out. And then as you bring your head back up to the neutral position, maybe that's a good moment to breathe in. And just work with that a few times and see if you can kind of really feel this sense that the ribs are opening and closing as you're one, breathing in, and two, moving your head in this way. If you are doing this on your back, if you're lying on your back for this lesson, as you lift your head away from the ground and you breathe out, you will feel that the ribs and the spine at the back of the body actually push into the ground. So as they open, it's like they provide some support for the lifting of the head. It's a little different in sitting because we don't have that kind of limit of the ground beneath us. Good. Okay, and then bring your arms up. So interlace your two hands. Okay, in this interlaced position. Bring your arms up, have your elbows together, and just do the same thing. Exactly the same movement. Really like amazingly simple stuff this week. Taking the head forwards with the elbows like this. And see again if you can integrate the breathing. Coming back to upright, breathing in as you come up, going back down, and breathing out. And really take your time, explore this movement. Don't think just because it's simple, it's not interesting. There's like a load of connections in the upper ribs to do with the nerves and the blood supply down through from the head to the neck and the shoulders. And try it again, just to kind of give you a little contrast. Try it again, holding your breath. And what does that do to your ability to move? Does it make it feel more enjoyable or less enjoyable? And then go back to breathing. Breathing out as you take your head down and forwards. Breathing in as you come up to neutral. Good. Bring your arms down and take a little rest. And how's your breathing now? Is there any change in your breathing, in your sense of yourself, sense of tension? Is your chest starting to feel like one of those emperor penguins? There's something about buoyancy and the buoyancy of the chest. And one of the analogies that I often use is if you're lying backwards in water in a pool or in the sea, and you're breathing in, that your chest raises up first because of its buoyancy, and then as you breathe out, your chest sinks down first. So in a very similar way, like the penguins are designed for buoyancy. They can obviously get rid of their air and swim very far, but they also want to be, they have a decent amount of air capacity. Good. Bring your hands back up. Bring your hands back up. Turn a little to your left so that your nose is kind of pointing towards your left knee. Turn a little to your left. And then begin doing the same movement. Begin taking the head down so it's looking down more towards the left leg now, and coming back up to neutral. And just do the same movement in this position. So we've created a slight rotation in the spine, which means that the ribs will have a different relationship to each other. The ribs on the left will be doing something different to the ribs on the right. Again, see if you can integrate the breathing in this movement, so that as you move your head down towards your leg, you're breathing out. This kind of goes with this principle of buoyancy, that as you go out, you're expelling the air, and it's like pushing the air out of the lungs in this position. And then as you come back up to upright, the front of the chest can expand again, and you can come to the surface of the water. Take it slowly. Give as much attention to the in-breath as the out-breath. Feeling what's happening in the ribs on both sides of your body. So the front, the back, and the left and the right. Good. Bring your hands back to the middle. Bring them down. Take a rest. Notice again what kind of breath you take after doing that movement. So one of the ways that we contract our chest, and I think that this is especially common at the moment because of the amount of time we're spending on computers or in front of a TV, or just sitting in kind of collapsed positions, is that the front of the chest becomes a little concave. So the habitual contraction of the muscles at the front of the chest really kind of keeps us in a tight position in some way. So this lesson is really like looking at that thing in a very specific way. Good. When you're ready, bring your hands back up. Change over the interlacing. So whatever you did last time, swap it over to the other direction. Bring your hands back up. Place them behind the ball of the back of your head. Have your arms kind of comfortable and relaxed in this position. Don't do anything too big. Move your nose so it's pointing towards your right knee. And then very slowly, very gently, begin to take your head down towards the leg and back up. And again, there's a difference between what the ribs on the left are doing and what the ribs on the right are doing. And there's still that same difference in your breathing process, so that as you breathe out, the ribs at the front contract, the ribs at the back open. And as you come up, you breathe in, the ribs at the front open, the ribs at the back contract slightly. Do it a number of times. See if you can feel any difference between what the ribs on the right are doing and what the ribs on the left are doing. Good. Come back to the middle. Bring your arms down. Take a short rest. And then bring your attention to the area of your diaphragm, the area underneath your ribs. And a few times, just as you breathe in and breathe out, give some attention to that area. Notice if that area has space, or because we've addressed some of the habitual contraction of the front ribs, maybe that area of the diaphragm has some space now, some maneuverability. A few times, just breathe in and breathe out with your attention resting very gently in the area of the diaphragm. The diaphragm is the round muscle, the kind of flat muscle that is underneath the rib cage. It comes up as we breathe out, and it comes, no? Yeah. It comes up as we breathe out, and it comes down as we breathe in. It's what creates the change in air pressure. And the air comes in as the diaphragm moves down, and the air goes out as the diaphragm moves up. But this muscle of the diaphragm can also hold some habitual tension. And as we release some of the muscles around the ribs at the front of the body, maybe we feel a bit more space for the diaphragm. And now, as you move your head downwards, again a few times, just to finish the lesson, see if you can keep your attention in this area of the diaphragm. Feeling that as you breathe out, the diaphragm can move up, kind of making things smaller, making the space of the chest smaller. And then as you breathe in, the diaphragm moves downwards, creates this sense of expansion, size, volume, buoyancy. Just do it a few times. See if you can kind of make it a really smooth movement with the breathing. Good. And come back to your head being in a neutral position and just feel how the front of the chest feels now. What do you notice about the front of your own chest? As we go through some of these bending movements, it's like we're encouraged to go into the muscle contraction that's already habitually there. And because we're doing it consciously, it's like giving permission for the system to let go of the habitual tension that's there. So it's a really useful tool. If you do feel an area of you is tight, you can tighten it a little more. You can actually do the movement that it's already doing habitually. Um, so yeah, that's today's lesson. In terms of its relation to pain, maybe it's not massively clear. But as I said at the beginning of the lesson, one of the things that I think is very true of people that are in a lot of pain habitually, or maybe habitually is not the right word, um, experience pain. My language today, experience pain throughout their day or throughout their life in some way. What they do in relation to the pain is tighten themselves. So that tightness, obviously, as a form of bracing against pain. And one of the things that I think that this method, the Feldenkrais method, does particularly well is teach the nervous system, the brain, how to let go of the tension that we've created again. And this can have a particularly beneficial effect to people that suffer from pain, because the tension can exacerbate the feelings of pain. So that sense of contraction and tightness can exacerbate the internal information that's being supplied to the brain saying this area is in pain. So as the muscles relax, the whole system is given an opportunity to relax. And maybe less information is being fed back to the brain saying this is so yeah, I'm not sure if that's particularly clear. If it's not, please write in the comments. If you enjoyed the lesson, I'd love to hear what you've found, what you thought about it. Yeah, this Saturday I'm teaching an hour-long lesson in that I'll post a link to in the Thoughtful Movements community group. That's an hour long, 1 p.m. UK time. If you want to come along to that, please let me know. And yeah, I will be back tomorrow with one more lesson this week, and then again next week. See you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.